Now, I can't show it to you right away because they wrapped it. Welcome to Around the Table. This is a show that brings you up close and personal to the hobby collectors and their fascinating collections. We'll delve into the various collections of watches, board games, Gundam toys, and so much more. Today's guest is me, and we'll be talking about my collection that I started about watches.
Welcome to Around the Table. Could you tell us who you are and how you got started with your collection?
So I'm Ron, I'm an IT professional, and I started collecting watches very recently, actually in the middle of the pandemic. I'm not entirely sure whether it was 2020 or 2021. Like everybody else, we were watching social media. I saw this show called Hodinkee in YouTube and was just fascinated that I could start getting into watches without necessarily spending for Rolexes and for Omegas. It turns out that there's so much valuable and very interesting pieces that you can find, even if it's not at the price point of hundreds of thousands.
Let's dive into your collection. I can see a lot of collectibles here. Can you describe some of the most prized items in your collection?
Well, I wouldn't call it as prized collection, or at least one of them is prized. However, they are memorable, and I think that's kind of how I got fascinated into the more accessible part of watch collecting. It doesn't have to be expensive. So let me show you what I have. And it's a modest collection. I started it during the pandemic. The very first one, there's a practical sense to it. It's a Garmin. Doesn't have a charge at the moment. Kind of reveals what I'm prioritizing on my workouts. However, so I got the Garmin mainly because I wanted to monitor my fitness, my walking and whatnot. But I did upgrade it, as you can notice. I did upgrade it into a nice shoe, which is this nice striped NATO watch strap. And then the very first mechanical watch in my collection is this Solid Boy blue. I've also changed the strap. This came with a metal strap. I've changed it to this leather NATO strap. And what really fascinated with me is how there's sort of like an inspiration into Rolex style of shape, Omega style of watches, but it's in a very affordable, accessible price point. And I realized these still look quite nice, and I could get into watch collecting without breaking the bank. So this is pretty cool. That's Solid Boy. And then the next one that I got into my collection is the Citizen. So this is Citizen watch. You won't be able to see it from the camera, but the dial of this is a very unique texture, and you just have to. It's sort of this rocky finish that I'm not sure if the camera can catch it. I'll move it around a bit. But my wife, we actually got this as his and hers, so she has the teal version of this. So that one, and then all the numbers has this sort of yellow patina, which was quite unique. Again, also something quite affordable. It's a Citizen watch, still an automatic, but I noticed that it's not one of those that it stops when you turn for changing the date. So you have to be careful. You have to put things at the time at 6 o'clock, 6:30 before you start changing the date. This is one of my favorites. This is something that I got from Singapore. We were traveling, and I came upon a Seiko store, so of course I had to check it out. And it's a Style 60 Seiko Presage. This is exactly how I got it, with this sort of gamuza leather NATO strap. It is open heart. You can see the inner workings, and of course the jewels when you see it from the back end. You'll see it. But the feel of the strap, the look, very nice dress watch. And I've always wanted to see something in this style, and I was able to get it in Singapore. So the next ones are actually more of like gifts. So this one is from the company, with their logo, red, and it's always quite stylish. And then this one is actually from my school, my alma mater. This is similar strap with the first one because it just looks good with that. But it's for the 25th year celebration of our school, and batch 98, although we technically celebrated it late. So there was a few batches that had that. So this is quite memorable because it's the first time the batch was able to see each other again since the pandemic. So that's where it started. And in fact, this is one of the more recent ones as well. I've always wanted to get a Panda chronograph, but the normal one used to be a bit pricey. This one I got in Tokyo, and the big difference is it doesn't have the Prospex logo, but it's pretty much the same look. In fact, it actually wears bigger. It's around the 42mm size, which works quite well with my wrist, and with the silver, but very light silver face, so it looks like the Panda. I think I kind of like it more. So that's the most recent one that I had in my collection, and my humble starting collection so far.
So earlier you mentioned to me you added something interesting from your recent trip. Can you show us what it is?
Sure. So I mentioned there a while ago that I went to Tokyo and I got that solar chronograph, but that wasn't the only one I got. I have been searching for an Orient Star. Orient Star is technically under still the Seiko line. However, they're quite iconic for the hobby collectors. And particularly, I've been looking for the Bambino. So I didn't get exactly the Bambino. However, it is in that look and feel. Now, I can't show it to you right away because they wrapped it. So it turns out when you buy something in Japan, they will wrap it for you right before you take it away. So this will not fly in the Philippines. This will not, like, you open that again. However, it is Japan, so it's a very different culture. So we're gonna find out if I still have my watch inside. Let's go. This is the first time, literally, we are opening this, and we are hoping that everything is still. It's not a gift, so I'm not ripping it off. But this is, I think this is the Japanese style of wrapping, so it's probably the single fold. Yep. So finally, let's open it. And of course, we have the obligatory manual that most of the time nobody reads. I do have my warranty card there. And yes, there you go. That's the watch. But before we get to the watch, let me just set it aside a bit. This actually comes with a replacement strap as well. And it's coming in as brown leather. The default is a blue leather strap. So If I feel like it, I could also wear it. I think more dress up in brown. So those are the documents, the standard documents that you get. And finally, after quite a few weeks since my trip, I get to see my light blue Orient Star open face skeleton Bambino watch. It's not actually a Bambino, but it is in the style of Bambino, mainly because of the dome shape of the glass. This, however, is mineral. Because the amount of glass that is used, it will be too costly if it's sapphire. That's quite a few watches. If there are not a lot of complications, it's an open heart. You can see the inner workings of the watch. It does feature a jewel crown, so that one is a nice accent. It also has this really interesting clasp. So they've already fitted this to my wrist, and it is a leather strap that I don't have to keep sort of putting in that knob in there. So they've already fixed that, and you just pinch and it sets it. So there you have it. It has a power reserve, showing the open heart, nice mechanical movement, of course from the Seiko family already. And I do love how it lands and shows on my wrist. Mainly the size is quite decent. It's not too big, not too small. And at the same time, I do love the color. And there you have it. This is my newest addition to my humble watch collection.
This journey is truly inspiring. For those who might want to start their own collection, do you have any tips or advice to share?
So, hanap ka ng kabudol. Joke lang. I think the best way to start in the hobby of collecting anything, I think, is number one, you have to figure out what is a comfortable budget, something that you're happy to spend. It doesn't break your bank, doesn't hurt your savings, and you don't have to get the whole lineup as quickly as you can. Sure, in the past 3 years, I've gathered a bit of number there. However, it's not like I'm buying every month or buying every few months. There's normally an occasion around it. So I think number one, have a budget. Number two is to take your time, take it slow, enjoy the journey, build more memories attached to the watches, because it makes them more enjoyable that way, rather than just a piece that, oh, I was able to get that already. But now every single piece, I have a story I can tell. And enjoy the journey rather than just the collection itself. All right, that concludes our episode of Around the Table. We hope you've enjoyed this intimate look into the hobby of collecting things. And we hope to see you guys again soon. If there are collections that you guys have that you want to feature, feel free to message us in social media, comment down below, and of course, if this is something that interests you, feel free to subscribe and share this with your friends. Until next time, this is Ron. Thank you guys. Bye.